I'm ready to slash and burn.
No quarter. I am going to be uncomfortable and all over you from start to finish.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Outside of the Box. And I feel like it's been a while since I've done a BattleBots interview, just because obviously we haven't had BattleBots in a little while. Hopefully, fingers crossed, coming soon. But I'm excited to have Sam McAmis from Gruff here to talk about my favorite flamethrower bot.
Hi, everyone.
So, for those that, I think most people have been watching at least the last couple of seasons of BattleBots, but I don't know if people realize how long Gruff has actually been around, in terms of BattleBots in season 4. And there's definitely been like different iterations and improvements, but I think the running theme has always been, it's definitely built very well defensively, and always has that flamethrower element to it, as part of the weapon design. Now, some people I know feel like flamethrowers don't make that big of an impact, but if anybody watched some of the more recent NHRL type things with some of the flamethrower bots there, if you get cornered by one, you're going to get, melted up pretty bad. I'm curious though, when you went with the flamethrower initially, like, what was the idea behind that? Like, why was that something that you were drawn to as part of the design?
I guess it's something that we hadn't really seen in BattleBots, like an actual like torch setup where we've got good oxygenation and can actually like do some damage with the weapon. We were inspired by actually Dick Stuplich of Team Waiachi. He had a flame cannon on Gladiator like 10 or 15 years ago and knocked out the judge with it. So that's kind of where we took our inspiration from.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's one of my favorite things. Any bot that has a flamethrower, I'm automatically drawn to because I think it's just like a fun additional thing to have. Now, obviously, the other major feature of Gruff is the durability. And clearly, like, you can see that in a lot of the matches. I did have somebody ask specifically, like, what type of metal is that, or if you can kind of tell me more about what makes Gruff so durable.
Well, we use basically a special type of AR steel that's Magnum triple alloy. It's supplied by actually one of our local companies down here in Tampa. It has a nice blend of basically strength and toughness. It's a little bit harder than AR 400, and it's also tougher. But unfortunately, with the way everybody's like where spinners are going now, we're being hard pressed to keep that durability up. We're actually looking at kind of a redesign because we used to be like the brick that like could just tank the hits, and the goal was to take the hit and break their weapon by having hitting 250 pounds of solid metal, and that worked for a while, but now like the spinners are so reliable and they hit so hard that we can only take a handful of hits and then they just keep going. So we're looking at kind of a redesign more like the Tantrum or Claw Viper switchback type of more absorbing impacts rather than trying to just be the immovable object.
Yeah, that I'm sure there's definitely a balance there. Now I'm really curious because I have to say, they BattleBots showed the unaired like Vegas and Vengeance, like those fights and stuff like that. And I didn't think much of it because it was just on YouTube, but I watched the fights, which a lot of them were just fantastic, and no exception was Gruff versus Slammo with using that like hammer type of mechanism, and I was like, yes. I honestly, I thought it was one of the greatest things, and I personally have an idea to do a hammer flamethrower myself, albeit at a much smaller scale. But talk about the like thought behind using that, because I honestly thought it was fantastic.
Well, basically, we wanted more options and more ability to do damage. And we actually had John Flack from Extinguisher join the team this year, and he's actually the one that can take credit for all of that. He designed the hammer and helped us integrate it into our lifter system. It's powered by the same mechanism. So that was he deserves all the
Yeah. Yeah, it was, I mean, it was so good. And I was like, I hope that that's not the last time that we see that configuration, but we'll see. We'll obviously see what happens moving forward. Now going back to like some of the fights earlier in the season, one of those that I wanted to talk about was that I think, beating Ripperoni in the first fight, at the time, it probably seemed, like they're a rookie bot and everything, but in hindsight, for how they did the rest of the season, that was a pretty good win to have. I think it was one of those, like, it took them some time to figure out their gremlins. But how was that? Because Gruff's obviously durable, but they were kind of moving around in the box in all sorts of ways, and I'm sure you had to be very careful to like steer clear of that.
That was an awesome fight. It was I don't know, it was really a lot of fun. We were trying to be a little bit careful, but still try to get on them and keep things going.
Yeah, for sure. One of the other ones that I really have to talk about, because I think it was such a lot of people had questions as to what was going to happen, was with your fight against Quantum. Because Quantum obviously is known for having very powerful jaws, and I think that maybe some were like, well, yes, like the jaw is very powerful, but is it really going to do much to Gruff, because Gruff is built like a tank? And I know you had somewhat of a modified setup to kind of prepare for that robot. It didn't quite work out, but I mean, I personally, I think that it was a really fun fight.
Yeah, so we kind of brainstormed ways to approach the fight, and the plan was to basically not let them get in a position where they could bite us. So we welded some strips of our extra armor on, but unfortunately, like, they were able to just barely like push that in enough to get some bites, and then once they got some bites in, they were able to crush it down and kind of go to town. Because while we've got solid armor on the side, we actually, like, the top and bottom armor pretty much just like dust covers. Like, the most of the armor on the top is just like 50 thou thick titanium. So it's the sort of armor that you see on ant weights. We have a bunch of ribs of steel that actually go over all of the like critical stuff on the top to protect it, but those were designed with spinners in mind, where they're going to start cutting through. They'll cut through the titanium, and then they'll hit the rib. And actually, we had really good luck with the titanium kind of like bunches up, and basically it kind of dulls the tooth and makes spinner teeth just like bounce off of the steel. Like, we dropped Tombstone on top of us and just had it, he cut the titanium, but it just bounced off of the steel. But unfortunately, that sort of thing isn't isn't really good against crushers, because they just bite down, and then if they don't go, if they don't hit a complete opening, like, they'll bend the steel around enough, and they'll find a spot where it'll just go through, and that's kind of what you saw.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I'm curious, since there has been a bit of time since we've had a BattleBots filming, what sort of things have you been working on robot wise in the meantime? You know, because obviously I'm sure you want to kind of work on some of those upgrades with Gruff, but I'm just curious what that's looked like for you.
Um, so we've put time into a redesign for next season, trying to basically it's a complete redesign for more absorbing impacts rather than tanking them. But then also, like, I personally have put more time to small bots and working with my son. He's getting started in the beetle weights. So we've been doing a lot of that lately.
That's awesome. You know, I'm really curious because I haven't talked, I don't think much about the smaller robot competitions down in Florida. But you know, with him getting into that, how's the scene down there? You know, I'm just curious because I've talked to so many of the different leagues, so that's kind of interesting to me as well.
Um, I'd say it's very competitive. Like, we've got you know mini bots that go to Norwalk, and John Flack's 3 pounder is just a killer. And then you got Jacob Rogers and Dropkick, and there's some stiff competition down here.
What would you say, you know, for you, kind of being involved in those competitions, other than the obvious, you know, what are the biggest differences? I mean, you know, for me, I think that with the smaller bots, you can afford to have more creativity because, you know, it doesn't cost as much to put
Right.
something into, you know, a design and have it not work. You know, it's the failure aspect of it. It's a little bit easier to fail and like take that and then go back and try and figure out what happened.
Um, yeah, it's been, I guess it's kind of been fun working with my son, because he has crazy ideas, and we try to figure out ways to make them work. Like, we built a flea weight 150-gram bot that had 2 spinners, like on the front and back. Like, who had 2 vertical spinners? Counter Revolution, back in, was it season 1? Um, and also like a self-writing, like, and stabbing stick. So that was a fun challenge to try to figure out how to build all of that into the smallest weight class.
Yeah, that is very true. Because I think the kids have some pretty wild ideas. I mean, my daughter's the same way. We recently just built one of the Witch Doctor plastic ant kits, which was a lot of fun. So it's very interesting to see what the kids come up with and what kind of draws their attention. Now, you know, for you, I'm curious, with, you know, 2024 kind of in full swing, are you, you know, looking to maybe test out some things at Robo Games, which is just coming up in a few months here?
Yeah, we'd like to give the hammer more of a test. I don't think we'll be at a point necessarily where we'll have the new design finished, but at least try that out.
I did see that they got approved to do flamethrowers,
Yes, yes.
so that's always a nice bonus. Yeah, I mean, you know, what do you think as far as with any redesign? I mean, it's difficult because, you know, it's hard to test the bigger bots and you never know for sure what's going to work, and really kind of having that actual like combat action is the way to do it. Aside from kind of testing that out at Robo Games, are there any specific like goals that you have for this next iteration of Gruff going into the next season of BattleBots?
Um, Really, it's just kind of to bring our durability back, because, like, we're known for that, and we got KO'd 3 times last season. So that's one of our big focuses with this, as well as some ability to maybe hit back.
Yes. Yeah, because it's one of those unfortunate things that, like, while I love flamethrowers, it they they can be effective at the heavyweight level, but it's a little bit harder because of the material that, you know, that you're going up against. Like, to be able to melt something is not going to be as easy if it's a beetle weight and everything's made of like TPU. So
And then everything's like really compact as well. Like the smaller you get, like there's less between, you know, your outer armor and your electronics. Like you know, you don't necessarily want to have air gaps, and not that you really want in heavyweights either, but you know, naturally, like you're going to have more space to put insulation and, you know, protect things better.
yeah,
Plus
yeah.
just the way some of the BattleBots restrictions on the use of flamethrowers and stuff, and like how long we can pin and where we can pin, um, you know, make it a lot harder than, you know, than it is in some of these other competitions where you can get somebody, you know, up against the wall and hold them for, you know, 20 seconds.
Yes, absolutely. Now, you know, one thing I'm also curious about just in general, as somebody who's been, you know, working on robots and building them for a long time, what are like some things like that have been, I think, your maybe biggest takeaways, or, you know, things over the course of time that you've been doing this that you like have helped you and you feel like you're in a much better position to put something out there that's, you know, holds up well or is competitive, just, you know, kind of those lessons learned over the course of time.
Um, I don't know. I feel like there's so many. It's hard to say. Like, I just, you know, try to iterate and try to improve and think. You know, uh, don't rest, I guess. Just think of, you know, and plus, like, try to think of, like, I just think of all of the ways things can go wrong. And like when you're putting it together, like you know, what can go wrong. So like, we put a lot of time into battle hardening and, you know, potting electronics and, you know, stress relieving everything so that your wires aren't jumping around and pulling out of stuff. So little details like that.
Well, and I mean, I think the good thing is that those lessons really serve you well. I mean, I've said this a million times because I think that it's such a great story. You know, you look at robots from last year that were in the Giant Nut finals, like Huge and Sawblaze, and they're robots that, you know, maybe weren't necessarily like one of the very top picks in the past years to win the Giant Nut. And those teams both put a lot of work into iterating and just really fine tuning those designs. And they both had really great years. And you know, you never really know when it's going to be that year for Gruff. That personally, I think I've always felt it was a robot to not sleep on, and, you know, not underestimate, because I think that it has the potential for a lot of things. In fact, one of the funny things is I think it was 2 years ago in season 6, I believe that my daughter, I had her make a bracket and she picked Gruff to win the Giant Nut. So you know, it's one of those things that like it could happen. I mean, is that, you know, is that ever like, is that the goal? Because I know different people have different goals. You know, some people just want to go out there and fight and test their robot and they don't really care about winning. I mean, is that like on your radar that you would love to be in a position to get there?
I mean, you know, we'd love to, and the nice thing about winning is it means you get to fight more. But like really, like I think we enjoy, you know, just, you know, I guess participation and the fighting. That, you know, the more we win, the more we get to fight. Um, but we, you know, we also like to put on a good show. So like, you know, we could obviously be more competitive if we, you know, ditched our, you know, 30 pounds of flamethrowers and put, you know, a spinner on it, but then like we wouldn't really be Gruff. So and you know, that's the thing, is like we always, like, we know that we're going to get, you know, good fights against top bots because you know, we put on a good show. So like we've, you know, we make good photos and good videos for the I guess for TV and for the calendars and everything. So yeah.
Yeah, and actually that's one kind of last question that I had. Does that make it challenging to make changes? Because, you know, if you have a bot that is iconic, like, you know, for me personally, I think Gruff is, you, like you said, you don't want to make too drastic of changes to it because then it's not that bot anymore. But at the same time, you also can't just kind of leave things stagnant and leave it as it is because the rest of the field is changing. So you have to do something to change and grow with that. So, I mean, does that make it a challenge for you because you have to have that balance?
A little bit. Like that's, you know, that's kind of in the back of my mind when I'm working on stuff, but um, you know, really like it's not that hard to, you know, it's still gonna be Gruff. Like it'll still be recognized. Like, you know, the past few, you know, there were many seasons that Hypershock, like if you look at it like from one season to the next, it was very different if you look at the details, but like you look at it, it's still like, oh, that's Hypershock. So um, you know, it'll be, you know, that sort of thing, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, I'm definitely excited to kind of see what you end up doing with it. I mean, it's a bot that I've always thought was fantastic. Like I said, I'm a sucker for flamethrowers, so um, you know, and when you have probably the biggest flames of any bot in the field, then that's really something that draws people to it. But well, I'm excited to see what Gruff has in store for the future. You know, obviously, thank you for taking the time and being on the show. I'm sure there's a lot of fans who will be really excited to see this, and you know, just we'll see what happens with Gruff in the months to come.
All right. My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. So for everybody that's watching, please make sure that you continue to like, subscribe, you know, all of that good stuff. I have, again, like lots more stuff planned for the year. We'll try and get a good mix of all the content for everybody to enjoy. Keep supporting combat robotics, and we'll see everybody next time on the show.
Bye, everyone.